Welcome to Transformation with Martine. Conquer everything and compromise nothing. This show brings you real, raw, and vulnerable conversations. If you have never liked small talk and have been on a personal growth journey for a long time, stay tuned as Martine and her guests share empowering stories. Now is the time to own your past and look toward your future with hope. Believe in your dreams, and all that you want to achieve is possible. Transformation Coach Martine helps you accept and love you for you. It's time to listen to your heart and tap into your unlimited potential. You have the answers you need inside. Sometimes you just need the right guide to help allow transformation to happen. Transformation with Martine starts now.
Welcome everyone to Transformation with Martine. This is where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy Friday. For those of you who don't know, my show is about hope and the resilience of the human spirit. And my show is every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. And if you have a story of overcoming and resilience and taking your journey to a whole new level, reach out and maybe we can talk about being on the show as well. So without further ado, I want to introduce my special guest today. She and I met because of the TEDx work that both of us do. Woo, this is a cool thing. I get people on stages and she has the stage. So this is cool. So that's not exactly what we're talking about at the moment, but that's how we met. And welcome, Mitzie Williams.
Thank you so much for having me, Martine. I'm looking forward to this.
Absolutely. So when we talked before, we were talking about like the whole premise of my show is hope and that we can't overcome anything. We can get back up. Sometimes like Maya Angelou says, we'll park for a bit, but then we'll get that car in gear again and we'll go. And you were talking about scars. And I know that I had a really wonderful doctor. When I was diagnosed with cancer in 2014, was colon cancer, stage 3. And I had to have surgery first and then chemo. And the doctor that I met, he just had like the best bedside manner, awfully good looking too, but the best bedside manner.
That's a bonus.
Yeah, it was a bonus, just to look at him and, yeah, especially when you have a little anesthesia and it's like, whoo, yeah. But he just talked about scars and he had some of his own from different things. And he just thought that they were beautiful. They were warrior marks. They told our story. And I just I resonated with that. I'm like, yeah, I had at that time, and I mean, I was done having kids at that time, but 3 kids and stretch marks, I mean, these kind of things, they're kind of like just the battles that we go through. And
yes,
and even the beautiful things of having children, things happen to our bodies and it's all just like evidence of our journey. So how did you get into this world of transformation in all the areas of your life, in your work and just your personal journey?
Oh, that's very interesting as you mentioned scars, because it's one of the areas I'm very passionate about as well. Mm-hmm. And I didn't say much when we spoke initially, but I also have 3 large scars on my thigh. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the things I have hidden because they're scars. And we're told that scars are not the most flattering things to look at. And so I would cover that with the explanation, or actually it's an excuse, mm-hmm. to say, oh, I'm just being modest, I'm just not wearing the shorts and the short skirts. I'm just being modest. Yeah. The truth is, I was covering those scars. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times when we have these scars, we are told by the world, we're told by different environments that scars equal shame. And so I was covering those scars because they held deep resonance of shame, in my opinion. And so it might be worth telling you how I got those scars. Mm-hmm. So I'm Jamaican, grew up in poverty, had no electricity, had no running water. And so we were basically always in survival mode. Uh-huh. And so instead of prioritizing school a lot of times, although my parents had the very best intentions, I had to take care of the animals first because that meant survival. That meant having a meal that evening. And so it was this tension between education and getting the housework done. And this particular morning, as was the norm, there were times when my father was riding a little C50 bike, and he would either leave the lunch money with my mom and then rode out real quickly, because I think, looking back later on, he was also embarrassed about not being able to provide for us in the way that he wanted to do as a dad. But I must say, he is an amazing father, and I love him dearly. But as I grew and I had my own children, I empathized so much more because I understood how he felt. And this particular morning, I wanted to go to school like every Monday to Friday. And mom said, well, you can't go this morning because dad didn't leave the lunch money for you. And I said, well, I really needed to go because we had this thing in Jamaica that was called the Common Entrance Exam. So it's like at the end of grade 6, you take that examination and you'd go to a particular high school. Now, I know in a lot of countries, like, students get to choose what high schools they would attend. Not so in Jamaica. Based on the scores you achieved, you were placed in a high school. So this is crucial. And I understood that my only way out of this situation was my education. See, there are a couple of ways you can get by in Jamaica. One of them, is track and field. And I tell people I have 2 left feet, so that wasn't an option. So I had to use the only other thing that I thought could help to advance me, and that was education. So this particular morning, I decided, I'm going to just go to the well. We had a well because, like I said, no running water. Run to the well, had the bucket on my head, went and fed the chickens, went and fed the pigs, and then I moved the goats about and did all my little chores. And of course, the more chores I did, the more chores my mom had for me, because I'm the second of 9 children. And suffice it to say, I was quite late. So instead of taking the rocky road, which was much longer, I took what we call the shortcut. But that shortcut is through the grass. It's through not the main road. And it had barbed wires. And ordinarily, I would be able to navigate that very well. But in my haste to try to catch the next bus, I miscalculated. And the barbed wire caught my skin, caught my leg, and just ripped into it. And this is, how important adrenaline is, or how deceiving adrenaline is. I saw the blood. I picked up my skin from the barbed wire. Oh. Sorry if it's triggering to anybody.
Oh, no, it's okay. I just whoa.
I picked it up and I just kept hopping. Because I couldn't think about the pain I just endured. I had to think about what was ahead.
Yeah.
And for most of my life, those scars reminded me of that experience. And enveloped in that was shame. It was embarrassment, because as I progressed in my life, I found myself in a lot of important environments. I told you earlier that I've qualified as a barrister here. Yeah. So you're going out and you're hanging out with the judges, you're hanging out with the lawyers here. You don't want to tell that story. You really don't. But just looking back, one day I was lying there before I actually qualified. I lay in my bed and I was having a moment where I was very discouraged about the process, because bar school is hard. And I began to think, oh my God, Mitzie, can you really do this? Can you really make it? Everything that was negative, and I'm not usually a negative person, but it was at a moment where it's extremely difficult. And I lay in my bed and that experience came back to me about the scars and the shame. And I thought to myself, what if my scars were leading me into that place of significance? Just like that. I had this moment where it said, your scars would lead you into significance. And I began to look at those scars more intentionally, to say, what is the relevance of these scars? Because hidden behind those scars was a journey of resilience, was a journey of having my mind focused on what's ahead of me, on the possibilities, not what was behind me. And that was a story that helped me, mobilized me through law school.
Wow. I just want to ask, because it's on my mind, and a similar thing happened to my brother in he was racing around too, and he caught now this could be triggering, like, to guys, of course, his scrotum on the barbed wire.
Ooh.
Yeah. That was, wow. That's a story in itself. You picked up your skin. Was there something inside you like, I got to take this with me to heal me myself? Or like, what were you thinking when you did that? Like,
When I was about 11 or 12, I don't think I had that sort of focus at the time. I just thought, that's a piece of me and I'm not leaving it behind. So I just picked it up, held it in my hand. And I wish it was something I could have preserved, because maybe it would be that thing I needed to remind me that you got through this, that you're able to keep going, that you are resilient, that you're courageous, that you have a vision for your life, a vision that maybe because of the environment you were in, other people who were supposed to care for you didn't have that for yourself. But deep within me, this was the thing that said, no matter what you've been through, you can even take that with you and help it to build you along the way.
yeah. But I think you're amazing. I mean, you think about yourself as just a little girl, and you already knew, okay, it was track and field or it's going to be education. And you already knew that, some people might have been like, oh, this is all I'm ever going to have, whereas you knew there was more meant. You knew you were meant for more, and no matter what it took for you to get to school, you're going.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'll tell you how I knew it was meant for more. I suppose after the break, I don't know when.
Yeah. We can talk about that after the break. But that is, though, I just think it's totally courageous. It's amazing. And not everybody has that wherewithal. And do you think that was a God thing? It was a faith thing, or it was just like this, I just know I got to do it.
So I did grow up in the church, and I am a Christian woman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think at the time my faith was that solid, because at 12 years old, you're still exploring.
Sure.
I think, and this is this is one of my platforms, my environment. Your environment is more instrumental to your focus, to your success than you think. A lot of times we think it's our textbooks, but I don't believe it's the textbooks. I think it's your environment, because you can look at your environment and say, I want that, or I don't want to be that. Yeah. And somehow you will find yourself starting to try to find people who could give you a little bit more hope, a little bit more drive. Yeah. Your brain begin to say, who can I look to for this sort of example to give me the encouragement to move forward? So it was my environment. I was in an environment where I didn't see a lot of people progress. And I looked at them, and the young girls, they would finish, they would have babies, and they would become insignificant after a while. And I thought, there is absolutely no way I'm going to live like this.
You knew you were meant for more. I love it.
I knew I was meant for more. I knew I was meant for greater.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take a break, everyone, and we'll be right back for more of Mitzie's story. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine, where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. My guest today is Mitzie Williams, and she's been telling us her story about the scars she received, barbed wire, and trying to get to school, and knowing that she's meant for greater, and she had to be there in order to go on to high school. You mentioned before we left too about being a 12-year-old girl, you weren't sure so much about religion, about God, or just Christianity. Were you able at 12 years old in Jamaica able to decide what path to follow regarding spirituality? Or like some cultures, it's Catholicism, that's all you get. Do you have a choice in Jamaica?
Oh, absolutely. You do.
Okay.
The rigidity in terms of religion is not necessarily there. We attended like basic Sunday school at a particular church. And we were free to attend, say, Sunday school at one church, Sunday church, main service on Sunday at another time. So in terms of comparatively, the rigidity in a lot of other religions was not something I experienced in Jamaica. Now, it's one of the things that framed our narratives, in that you have to go to church, right. You have to participate, and you have to be committed. But in terms of the rigidity as we know in other cultures and other religions, it was not something I had to deal with.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting how, I was raised Catholic, and until I was able to leave the house, I had no choice than to look at anything else. And my mom was so strict about that, and none of us, she's been gone since 2015, none of us were involved in Catholicism. And my father actually left the religion after she passed on too, and did something different. But I mean, she was so staunch about it, but we had no choice until we were on our own. So I was just wondering if Jamaica had different culture that way, or or your parents had a different way that had to be, or yeah.
Culturally, I don't think we're as rigid, but I do think, though, that regardless of the country that you're in, dependent on what you've subscribed to as a religion or mode of worship, because I am pretty sure Catholicism in Jamaica would be the same as in the United States and that sort of thing. So I think it depends on the path that you have chosen that would determine how rigid one is and that sort of thing. But it's not something I subscribe to.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. So you were talking more you mentioned talking more about your journey of resilience of, you got to school, or actually that's what I want to ask you. Like, you got to school and the injury happened. What happened from there? Like, did you get tended to help yourself, or I just picture this poor little girl with a leg. I mean, oh yeah.
That's an interesting question, because even living in the UK now, that would be a question that you would ask. That's not a question you'd ask as a little girl for me. And maybe it was personal. I would not even tell someone I got this cut. It's a part of the journey. We were taught to be strong, and it's something, it's an expression I have come to question a lot more, because we were vulnerable and we all have vulnerabilities. But in a lot of these cultures, Afro-Caribbean cultures especially, we're taught that for you to progress, you need to be strong, you need to be tough, you need to just crack on with it. So to be honest with you, it took me about 15, 20 minutes for my little path to get to the road. And I'm sure I used the grass and just cleaned it up and forgot about it, because school was next. And this was the only thing I was focused on. And whatever happened along the way is a distraction as far as I was concerned.
Yeah.
So the scars were there, it was healing, and that was the least of my worries. My problem was that I need to advance to get through to school, because there was no other way as far as I was concerned at the time.
Right. Yeah, I definitely know, like, I understand the strength, because I've had to fight for everything my whole life too, but in a different way. Yeah. And so I knew that, but it's also just thinking about a kid, like even a teacher. I mean, depending upon what you had on, if you didn't have a dress on or something, somebody would notice that, or just see if you're still bleeding or whatever. Like, most people want to help the kids regardless of circumstance or whatever, that's what keeps coming to my head. But I don't know.
I think when I look back, even at like primary school, if you're playing a game, for example, and you fell, scratched your knee, it's like, just go to the pipe and wash it off and crack on with your life.
Yeah.
There is no, oh, do you need a Band-Aid? No, just
or
go along with
it. Or anything on there.
It is a part of the process.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah.
And it's good. It has its advantages, but it does have its disadvantage, because it took me well into my adult life to say, it's okay to feel the pain.
Yeah.
It's okay to acknowledge that you're in pain and to seek a way to address it. But a lot of us believe that for us to get through, we have to pretend as if we're okay. And just to take this into another direction, I think that is what is behind a lot of these examples of mental health, in that there is not that scope to discuss that I am hurting, I need help. And a lot of us as Black women do not admit that we need help. The more dangerous part of it is we don't even realize that we need help. Because if you look at the journey, look at my journey, I taught myself, just keep going. There's no other way. That's the focus. Whatever you get along the way, whatever hurts you have, it's insignificant. Just keep going. And while it is important to fuel your resilience, it is important as well to stop sometimes and to understand why is it you're hurting and address that hurt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've been learning more about the Black community because my family's rather mixed. So I have Puerto Rican, I have Black, Hispanic in my family anyway. But two of my main mentors right now are Black women, and I've been immersed in the community, and they've very much welcomed me, which has been so awesome. And I've been able to learn, and it is just what you're saying. It's like I've learned how it's true how you may not say it as easily as me, maybe as a Caucasian woman, maybe seeking help. It doesn't, you don't. And women overall don't. We just keep going no matter what, but I know that there is more and more with Black women that they don't. Yeah. Do you think that that's just culture or just what you learned? Like, so Jamaican culture, but all these other different, no matter where you come from, whether you're born in the US, whether you're born in Europe or whatever, do you think it's more with Jamaican or more with?
I think it's more among the Black community, Jamaican, Caribbean,
Mm-hmm.
African American.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's cultural, but I think it's also historical.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that maybe, I was in an environment the other day and we were discussing racism. And one of the women said she was taught, and she's from the Caribbean as well, and she said she was taught that for her to be admitted to certain rooms, her parents taught her that she has to work harder. She has to be better. So there's that additional pressure as a Black woman to say, for you to enter certain spaces, you must be 10 times better than your Caucasian counterpart. So that's cultural, but it's also historical.
I pray that changes. I want to help be part of that change because
you're doing that right now, Martine.
Good. I pray for that because I just I remember one woman that we had to get together in Atlanta not that long ago, and I think I was two of white women, the rest were all Black women, and one woman, she just asked me, she asked me, she was, are you comfortable here? I said, honestly, I am. I said, I see you as a beautiful Black woman, and you are, but I see you as a woman first. And she was very good with that. Yeah, I just really just want us all to come together as women and stop the cattiness, putting downness, competitiveness and all that, and really just come together and support each other, because I really believe we need each other,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And as I've been immersed in more different cultures and communities now, it's like I want to learn and be able to support as best as I can, for my sisters. Yeah.
And that's why I believe in the power of a story.
Yes.
You and I connected about scars.
Mm-hmm.
I think we are more alike than we are different.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can understand that, it would help to advance each and every one of us.
Yeah.
I was telling a story to a dear friend of mine. She's coming over to be a part of the TEDx event, and she's a white woman. And she was telling me a story of poverty. And I thought, what? What are you talking about? She said, yes, Mitzie, I grew up in poverty. We didn't have so-and-so. And it opened my eyes much more to say, oh, wow, we are a lot more similar than we're different. Mm-hmm. And this idea that because you are a white woman, you didn't experience the same level of poverty that I experienced is incorrect. there are many white people who have this maybe experienced the same level of poverty and vice versa. Same, you might not experience discrimination in terms of your skin color, but I'm sure there are other things that you might be discriminated against. So honestly, I think our stories are more similar than they are dissimilar. And there needs to be a space where we can discuss our stories as women, as human beings. And I think that would help to advance each of us.
Oh, I do too. That right there, so important. I remember like a similar thing where the circumstances don't matter so much, but a pastor that I was really close to, Black man, and he goes, "You have no idea what it is to lose your home, to do this. I said, "I went through all of that. All of that. I lost my home. I lost every belonging. I do, honestly, I know." And just us having that vulnerability of the conversation brought us closer as friends and as coworkers. You know, I worked at a church for a while. And yeah, if we can have that vulnerability and just that human, that spirit, that connection, that just having those open conversations, so many things can shift.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree.
Yeah. So you went to high school, you've been to law school. Like, what happened in the journey of just getting into high school and then, just embracing what you knew, what was ahead of you? Like, what happened after that?
After primary school?
Yeah.
Well, I think what we should discuss is what happened when I got to school that day.
Yeah.
Because it gets more interesting.
Absolutely.
It was the norm that if you're late for school, you get a spanking.
Oh no, on top of that, oh, ow. That's awful.
So I have a bleeding leg and hands that could not work that day, because how it worked in Jamaica is you're late, you have to hold your hands out, spank, and it's done in front of the class.
Oh.
So that was the norm for me, actually. It happened so often. My parents knew that, hey, Mitzie's gonna be late, because my parents didn't necessarily have the same vision about where I needed to go to school. See, my other siblings went to the community school. And that's why I'm passionate about environment, because when I went to Sunday school, the girls who were doing well were the girls who went to, shall we say, the city school. So there were times when my parents said, well, you're the one who want to take a bus to school. You could easily walk to school. So it's going to be your problem to handle. So that I had to prepare myself for, that at times I wouldn't have the bus fare to take the buses, and I would hide off in the buses until the bus drivers just got used to me. And so that was something I had to deal with immediately after that event that morning. But to answer the question as to what happened, so I passed the common entrance. Whoopee. And I did get to go to arguably one of the better schools in Jamaica, which is a boarding school, British boarding school. And this is where all the creme de la creme would attend.
Yeah.
And so despite the fact that I did enter, I never felt a part of, because all these children, their parents were lawyers and doctors and accountants and teachers and nurses. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom, she had 9 of us. My dad was a carpenter on a little bike, so I never did fit in. So the journey never really ended in terms of my being out of place. But it's one of the things that make me who I am, because I've spoken to 2 of my sisters who attended the school as well. And one of them said that she still feels some sort of shame and embarrassment that she couldn't afford what the others could afford. For me, I don't know where I got this from, but I just decided that I earned my place here and I am going to walk tall. The fact that I got into that school, which was, you had to get like 95 to 100% on these exams, I felt like I could do this. I could do this. And rather than deterring me, I felt that I earned my place and I'm going to prove my space here.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I kind of alluded to this already, but what do you think was inside you if you don't quite know God yet? What do you think was inside you at 12 that differed from other people? Like, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to be like you. I am going to do this. I'm not going to be here just having babies. What was different inside of you if it wasn't like a spiritual push?
So I do think it was a spiritual push, but not one that I had an appreciation for. Because I
Okay.
think that there are certain things that are latent inside of you. You're not aware that this
Yeah.
is what is giving you the push, but surely it was my faith, yet not fully developed. But
Yeah.
also, I was the second of 9 children. I was the first girl. And I'm not sure if it's the same for you in your culture, but having an older brother, he was permitted to go and play the football and play the cricket. I was the girl who had to stay home, get the dishes done, help with the younger siblings. It's a task I absolutely hated. I resented it.
Yeah.
So there were times when my mom would say, okay, before we go to bed, that you have to change the baby's nappies. And I hated it because a part of me felt like they're your children, they're not mine.
Right.
And I know it probably sounds mean-spirited, but at 12, this is where I was. At 13,
Yeah,
this is where I
sure.
was. Yeah, it's like, why are you waking me to make a bottle? These are your children.
Yeah.
And so I think that it was that resentment of not wanting to always be at home, to have to take care of my younger siblings.
Yeah.
I decided that I had to create my own path,
Yeah.
and that would be far away from home.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of stories like yours that, the oldest is required, to do more. And they're the ones that are almost like tested out on the parents as the kids go down the line or whatever. Oh, they're less strict with the younger ones as than they were
Absolutely.
with you. But I know my mom left me in charge of my siblings too. I was the oldest, but she never did it often. That wasn't something she didn't. But I think anybody would have been a bit resentful for that because they are her children. And but yeah, it's part of the journey though, right? Kind
And
of
it's a
made.
cultural thing. It's a cultural thing that I'm beginning to speak about because I have found that a lot of older siblings do have that resentment. But not only that, it has some disadvantages for the younger ones as well. Because, for example, let's say I invest in my siblings. There's a little part of me that says, you should have respect just because I'm the one who clean your butts. I'm the one who sacrificed maybe not going to college to help you guys through school. And so you're expecting some sort of respect, some sort of contribution from those younger siblings. But when those younger siblings get to that place, they have their own families. And rightly so, they have to invest in those families. And so I have found that in my conversations with a lot of older siblings, there's this tinge of resentment towards the younger ones because you made so many sacrifices. They have benefited so much. And they get to the place where they can just move on while you're still scarred by all those experiences and all the sacrifices that you had to make for the family.
Yeah. I see that for sure. Yeah. So how do you feel even today, like about your life, if you feel like you look back and you see all the evidence that has led you to where you are now? How do you feel today about your life and even just what's to come?
That's Martine, I am so proud of myself.
Yay,
I
I
am
love that.
really, really proud of myself. I have not said that to myself enough, but I'm very, very proud of the scars I've had. I'm very proud of the adversity. One of the platforms I have built is creativity through adversity, because I think the adversity is the thing. It is the thing. If you could get through that, it demonstrates how resilient you are, how courageous you are. And so I'm very, very, very proud of myself. I look back even at my parents and I'm very proud of them. I'm very proud of them, Unfortunately, I lost my mom earlier this year. But I look at even my dad, and I'm very protective of him. I was very protective of my mom because I now understand the sacrifice. Mm-hmm. I understand that they did not have the exposure that I have. They didn't have the experiences that I have. And as a result, they did not have the resources that I have today. And so in their finite understanding of what support is, they did their absolute best to give us their version of the best life. And it's one of the things I say to people: release your parents. Most parents, not all, but most parents do the best that they can with what they have. Yep. And a lot of times we want our parents to give us what they don't have. My mom, for example, she had a certain exposure and she could not give me what she didn't have. And so I had to release her to say mom was an amazing mother. As a matter of fact, I think my mom died early. My mom died at 67 because she gave so much. She was there for so many of us, and she did things that I think she didn't have to do, but it's out of a love for her children, and it was her way of expressing love. Yeah. So I'm very excited about my life ahead. And I think that if I could have gone through all of what I have, it sounds cliche, but the best is definitely yet to come.
Oh, yeah. And, I often tell my clients and my own children, it's like, as a mother, I'm sure it's like some of the pain that your children go through is so much worse than what you went through. I mean, I know I went through a lot in my life, but when I hear like the pain of my kids and stuff, it's worse. And I wish I could take that from them, but I can't. And I know our parents were the same, and some parents aren't the best parents, but they all do the best. I know that I have regrets. I wish I could have a do-over in some things, but I did the best I could with what I had as well. And when you know better, you do better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? I was watching an interview with, I think it was Jennifer Aniston once, and she said, I have absolutely no regrets in life. Mm-hmm. And under my breath, I thought, liar. But you know what? As I get older, I'm beginning to think I have no regrets, because something out of that thing taught me a lesson I would not have otherwise learned. I have learned things about myself. I have learned things about life. I've learned things about success, about transition. Could I have done some things differently? Absolutely. But the thing that I did and how I did it, I learned so much from. And so I'm grateful for all these experiences. And they're not all good, but I'm grateful for them. Honestly, I am.
I am too. And I can honestly say that about a good portion of my life. I would not wish cancer or my autoimmune that I have now or the abuse that I had as a kid. I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but I wouldn't trade it, because it's made me a fighter, a warrior, or a resilient person that is able to help others. And there's nothing better than that to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're going to take a break, everyone, and we'll be back with our final thoughts. Thank you so much for tuning in. Everyone, do Transformation with Martine, where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. So Mitzie, you were saying one of your platforms is creativity through adversity. Tell us about
that. I suppose I've had so many instances of adversity in my life, and I do not believe in being a victim. I believe that we're all victors. If you've chosen that, you can be victorious. And so in the midst of adversity, if you want to transform, then you must become creative. You must look at the significance of your scars. What do these scars mean to me? So yes, I have these 3 scars on my leg or across your waist or arm or breast or whatever the case might be. What story does that scar or those scars tell you about who you are? What story would those scars tell you about becoming the person that you want to become? And we all have a choice to make. A lot of times people say, oh, but I had to, and I had no choice. What I would like to say is we all have a choice, and every day we make them. And so we have to, or we should, make the decision, make the choice to advance in the midst of the adversity. They are seeds. They are seeds to greatness.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of my coaches was talking about how, you know, we have to get to the root of things, and pull out those roots before we can plant the new seeds.
Come on.
We got to get to the heart of it and plant something new and rewrite those chapters.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of that, rewriting those chapters.
Yeah. So if somebody comes to you, just somebody maybe you meet at an event, maybe somebody that you're going to meet, maybe you're going to get into depth with one of your speakers or something, that conversation. What would you tell somebody who is in a place of perhaps starting over, perhaps rewriting some chapters, just wanting to make some big changes in her life? What would you tell her?
She wanted to make big changes in her life. That she's taken the first step. She's made the decision that she can. And that's the biggest hurdle. Once you've understood that you can, the rest is easy. The rest is getting all the resources. It's getting the personnel. It's getting all the books or the conferences and everything else that you need to understand. But if you've come to me to say, I've gotten to this stage and I need to rewrite some chapters in my book, I would say, yes, you're on the right path. You've begun the hard work, which is you've done all the introspection at this stage, and you've understood that, okay, I can begin again. And each of us, no matter what we've been through, no matter where we've gone, we can begin again. Each day that God gives us is a day to begin again, to begin anew. It's like that butterfly effect. You just keep opening up, or I like the eagle. I love the eagle. Like how you have your lighthouse, mine is the eagle. Which is you soar on the wings of adversity. And there's some of us, I think God has given us certain challenges because he will use us as a demonstration to somebody else who does not have that vigor, that vitality, that vision to do the things that we have, to say, look at her. If she can do it, so can you.
Absolutely. I was just thinking about my guest for next week as well. His name is Fletcher Cleaves. He will be on next week. And he was, it was an auto accident of, an auto accident that left him a paraplegic, and it was texting, a texting incident. And he has gone on to just be a pretty powerful motivational speaker. And obviously you don't know something like that is coming in your life, but it's making that decision to not let something stop you, that you still have this, thinking about Les Brown, you've got this greatness inside you, and it's there for you to unwrap. And sometimes, like, something that I always used to say is like these sandpaper wrapped gifts that we get, they're not fun to receive. And there's a lot of work that we have to do around them. But if we unwrap those packages and find the lesson, in these adversarial times, we can do so much,
Yes, and I think it comes back also to understanding your scars. I could have stayed there and looked at, oh my God, these scars on my leg. It's a moment to be ashamed and that sort of thing. But what we need to look at is where these scars or where these adversities or where these challenges can take us. And one of my favorite things about this whole idea of the scars, as a Christian woman, there's a story when, after Jesus was crucified, he came and one of the disciples, Thomas, said, oh, I don't believe that you're Jesus. Like, how could that happen? And he said, unless I touch the scars in your hands and put my hands in the side where they pierced you, I will not believe that you are Jesus. And he allowed him to do that. And that story said something to me, because after that, he said, no, do not touch me because I've not yet ascended. See, the scars is not, it's proof of where you've been, but it's an attestation of where you're going.
Yes, absolutely. That's the way to look at it, of where you are going, not of what's happened, where you are going. And that's a good thing to look at. I was diagnosed with, it's autoimmune vitiligo. It's been about a year and a half now. And when this first happened to me, I was like, really? Another thing? I got to have something else happen to my body. Like, come on. And it really took me a while. It's like I wouldn't even talk about it for a while, and I would hide any way that I could. And through phototherapy and some other treatments, it doesn't show as much as it used to, except really like on my hip. There's a good section there. And now I just kind of look at it like, well, it's okay. It's something that's unique about me. That's okay. And there's something here that I'm sure I can help somebody else with, whether it's somebody else in this community that, somebody else like me, or whatever, but there's a purpose for this. And I feel like in my mind, I will cure it. There is no cure, but I feel like I'm going to, for me, if I can get through and be 100% cured of stage 3 colon cancer, I can do this too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's something like I will think about your story a lot. I think about one of my colleagues. She says that running a marathon wasn't something she so much wanted to do, except for the fact that she thought, if I can do this, I literally can do anything. That was her thinking. So she did it. And then whenever something comes up that, oh God, it's hard, I don't think I can do it. Hey, I run a marathon, And I feel like I could look at your story now too, that, just what you went through to get what you are today. That's pretty inspiring. And we can use each other's stories just to.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing your story as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So on a final note here, where can people find you just to learn more about you, what you do, and connect with you if you're open to that?
Absolutely. So if I could call it my biggest platform, I'm not much of a social media person, I must confess. I will become one.
Yes, you will.
I'm aware it's an area I need to work on. So I'm pretty viable on LinkedIn. So Mitzie Williams on LinkedIn. Facebook, Mitzie Williams. Instagram, Woman in Worth. That's something we didn't get a chance to talk about tonight, Martine. Yes, I am big on woman and her worth. And I have a YouTube channel called Woman in Worth. It's not a huge following just yet. And in that I share, it's primarily biblical. So I share a lot of biblical learning there. I do a lot of teaching on that platform, and I'm excited about that. It's not huge, but I'm excited that the people I'm impacting, I could see their lives change in front of me. So yeah, that's about it. LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And for the people who want to read any of my books, I'm also on Amazon, Mitzie Williams, where I have written a series of books about my same journey, growing up in Jamaica and advancing into law school. I have a series there called Drawing from Your Well. I've written books 1, 2, and 3. Yes, and it's has to do with, the well. So this is what book 1 looks like, Drawing from Your Well. Yes, and there's a book 2 and 3. I'm currently writing book 4. Again, I've written 2 other books, Damaged Goods, Healing Waters, and The Cream, which is a woman's story looking at the Jamaican culture, some of the things that we have to navigate, stigmas and stereotypes, and this idea that if you've been through certain things, you're damaged and ready to be disposed of. Yeah. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, I'm actually, well, I'll message you after this, but Yeah, those are powerful stories. I can tell just the title draws me in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. It's been wonderful spending time with you here and before, and I know we're going to connect again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm so grateful.
Oh, I am grateful to have you. And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in and spending time with us. We'll see you next Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Happy Friday.
Thank you for tuning in to Transformation with Martine, real, raw, and vulnerable conversations. Listen or watch live every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on transformationtalkradio.com as Martine and her guests have deep, meaningful conversations, sharing empowering stories. Step into your passions and lead with your heart. If you are ready to accept and love you for you, visit martineemmons.com and start allowing transformation to happen today.